Hello, I'm here with Kamal Jethwani, the VP of Digital Ventures at Moffitt. Kamal will be one of the presenters next week on February 6th, along with his colleagues. So welcome. Welcome, Kamal.
Thank you so much
Uh,
for having me.
Great. So you and I have something in common, right? We are both proving that the geography is no longer relevant. I am in Florida, but mostly supporting companies that are Boston based. And you're actually in Boston. You live in Boston, and yet you support the prominent Florida-based institution. So
Yes,
we'll talk about that a little bit as we go through a few questions, if that's okay.
sounds good.
Excellent. So Kamala, starting with basic background, we've talked about the fact that you're an MD. How or what career path led you to the digital ventures at Moffitt?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So I'm trained as an internist. I'm a primary care physician, and I spent a lot of my time sort of really in the beginning parts of my career thinking about how can I combine my interest in administration, research, clinical, etc., and ended up spending about 15 years in Boston's biggest health system, Partners Healthcare, now Mass General Brigham, leading digital innovation there. So really, when I started the career, we called it telemedicine because there was nothing like digital, and started from there and worked on a lot of different areas of digital health. And in the 15 years, I think I saw that industry grow pretty significantly and did a lot of work around bringing new programs in, thinking about how we solve some of the unmet needs, and then also venturing, so creating new ventures with ideas that were produced internally. By 2019, I think I had done a lot. I left the role, and my learning was that I didn't think startups knew exactly how to get traction and meaningful adoption and scale in digital health, specifically within health systems and pharma companies. And I wanted to change that. So I started my own venture and started supporting startup companies and health systems in that journey. A few years later, I came across Moffitt first as a company that I worked for in that capacity, helping set up innovation functions. But I think the mission and the purpose really spoke to me. I lost my father in 2011 to cancer, and what we do here at
Sorry to
Moffitt
hear.
is life changing for a lot of people on a daily basis. And I think the talent, intellect, the ideas, and just the spirit that this organization has pulled me in a pretty deep way. So I wanted to make sure I could do everything possible to make the lives of these patients better. So here I am. I lead digital ventures for Moffitt, and I'll talk a little bit more about our role.
Awesome. So that leads us into maybe another question, which is VP of Digital Ventures. What does the job means? And assuming you're not a practicing physician in that role, and
Correct.
yet it is a very important department within the hospital. So
Yeah.
let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, at a high level, I think my department is in charge of infusing the idea of using digital tools to improve how we deliver care to our patients. That's our overall mission and goal. But very specifically, we look at three things. The first thing is we do a lot of inside out innovation, which is where we work with our researchers and our physicians. We look at their ideas, their inventions, the novel things that they're coming up with in the digital and AI space, and we figure out the best commercial outcomes for them. So we either create new companies, we think about licensing deals, partnership, whatever it might be, to be able to give these companies be able to see the light of day, right? The second thing we do is partnerships and inside out innovation. So, how do we work with large industry leaders all the way down to small startup companies that are meaningfully going to be able to change how we deliver care? And how do we bring those in? And how do we create those alliances? And the third thing is ecosystem building. So, I have a team that is focused on building an ecosystem in oncology because innovation is not a solo sport. We think that we all need to kind of come together and really make this meaningfully happen. So, we have a team that is dedicated on building an ecosystem. And one part of that is a CancerX, which is a public-private partnership with the Trump administration, where we actually have 188 organizations that work with us to reduce mortality and number of deaths caused by cancer.
I we might be jumping a little bit, but since you
Yeah.
brought up the Cancer X initiative, which is very exciting and interesting. And I hope we talk about that a little bit more during the February 6th presentation. If you don't mind sharing a bit more then with our colleagues, it would be terrific. But back to the sort of the administration, the new administration announced huge investment, $500 billion in AI infrastructure. As the person who is sort of at the front end of the digital health, digital part of the life science industry, what are your vision for how that investment might transform the industry? And maybe a good question is that a lot of times I get asked is timeline, right? They just announced the $500 billion. It takes time to implement, not to mention, to make a full impact on the industry. What is your expectations as far as the time frame and the scale of that investment on the industry?
Yeah, I'll start in reverse order. I think it is a very, very important initiative, and I think it could be a game changer in how the United States participates in the AI revolution in this world. We do think that this is an industrial revolution level of change that we're seeing we're part of this history now. That's really exciting. So I think that this initiative, more important than the amount of dollars, I think the fact that we're paying attention to it and the US has decided to play a leadership role in it, I think is the more important part of it. So I think it's extremely important. Now, the timeline questions are a little bit harder to answer for two reasons, right? One is AI is moving at speeds that we've never seen before, right? We've gone from, exactly, it's a crazy hockey stick. We've never seen it before. So I don't know about speed because, we might be looking at, robots fully functional within the next year or so, right? So we never know where it's going to go. So I don't want to predict speed on the technology upfront. The other thing we don't know is how this administration is actually going to behave around timelines either. This is unprecedented territory where they have a lot of industry stalwarts that are part of this initiative. And so how the money is going to be distributed and how it's going to actually take place, it could be outside of how typically government works. So again, those two reasons, I don't know about timeline, but I do think that this is not the only amount of money we're going to see. I think over the next 4 years, we probably will see this number triple or quadruple.
Yeah.
And I think that the infrastructure that we need for AI is important, and we need this to set ourselves in a leadership position in the world. There's no option.
It's interesting, and it's amazing how it all coming together at such a short time. Like all of a sudden we hear the announcement. The next day we hear about the Chinese competition to the AI that comes at a fraction of the cost. You can question whether the data is right because sometimes I'm skeptical of what we hear without proof. But it tells us that this announcement could not come a minute too early, that this is exactly like you said, it's the next industrial revolution, and we're in the middle of it. So
Yeah.
absolutely. If and let's cover that if we could in our February 6th presentation. But let's dive back to sort of to your career path. We've talked about the impact of the digital health on the overall Moffitt oncology treatment delivery. So I'm thinking of digital health as an enabler, right? But your background is super interesting. You're going from a practicing physician who recognized the shortages and opportunities to an entrepreneur, a full-blown entrepreneur starting your own company. If you look forward maybe 5, 10 years, do you see digital health remains or retain its position as an enabler, or does it become its own segment, like its own industry within the healthcare?
Yeah, I think I will have claimed victory when digital health no longer called digital health and it's just health. It's just the way we do it, right? And I'll give you a couple of examples that have like set my belief, right? We had a study at the Brigham where we took 15,000 patients that had hyperlipidemia, so they had high lipids, and we divided them into two groups, right? And one group got physicians, primary care doctors, internal medicine doctors, and they said take care of them as you would, standard care. The other group got medical students, second year medical students, not a lot of medical knowledge, right? And they were giving algorithms. And they said, all you got to do is follow the algorithm. The group that got the algorithms, the medical students, did 3 times better in outcomes, right? Why? Because physicians are horrible at following guidelines. They think they know better than everyone else. And there is no ability to standardize humans, right? If you create a hypertension clinic or a lipid clinic or a diabetes clinic and you literally put nurses in charge, consistently those clinics have better outcomes. Now, where are doctors better? Doctors are better as diagnosticians. Doctors are better at advanced disease. Doctors are better at complicated meds and complicated treatments where guidelines don't exist, where you need judgment. For the day-to-day routine, we're wasting our doctors, literally. My vision of the future is doctors are researchers and they are coming up with how we do this, not actually delivering the care, because all that can be automated with AI, right? We're not going to see the distinction between technology and human and this and that in the next 10 years. The other thing, that's one data point. The other data point is we are losing 20 to 30% of our positions over the next 5 years to retirement. We're not training that many people. And the disease burden continues to grow. That demand supply curve mismatch, there is no way there's a plan where humans can continue to be the only people giving care. We're going to have to automate, we're going to have to optimize. Put all that together, there is no future. I don't see a future where digital health is not the way in which we do healthcare.
This is, thank you, first of all. Thank you for sharing this vision. It is a bit unique because every time I talk to any practicing physician, I refuse to use the word doctor, but practicing physicians, I've never heard of them actually say, like, let's bring in more NPs, let's bring in, a more protocol-based care. And it's almost always, you can't replace the doctors, you can't replace the experience. But the reality is exactly like you said. For standard care, we do need to follow. We do need to provide care that is based not just on random, patterns that they created, but on the protocols. So this is definitely interesting. I can imagine an interesting conversation when
Yeah,
you
all,
when
all, all medicine really is pattern recognition. And so if I get better as a physician with age, because maybe I see 1,000 patients and that's my pattern recognition, AI algorithms do millions on a daily basis.
in the first day, you don't have to be
On a
30-year-old
daily,
physician. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I mean, think about Tesla, right? Tesla's getting, and this was a few years ago, so now it's probably even higher, 1 million miles of automatic driving data per day. That's how much better their algorithm gets on a daily basis. That is never going to be the experience of a human being individually, right? And that is what we need for this next phase of how we deliver care to a growing population that is going to have a longer lifespan because we've increased life expectancy, but we also have increased disease burden. So we're living longer, we have more chronic illness, we have more things happening to us. This is what we're going to need.
There's one thing about, and I don't want to call it telemedicine because it's just so limited, but there's one extremely weird, at least in my mind, limitation on remote medicine, if we can call it that, is we can't practice cross-state borders, which is so weird. Like I've tried when I moved to Florida, I've experienced that. Like I try to call the doctors back in
Mhm.
Boston before I moved permanently. And they said, "Oh, we can't practice. We can't give you advice. If you say you're physically in Tampa, we can't pick up the phone." And I think the administration and the regulatory and the FDA has to deal with that. We are one country. We're living in one world. Like with AI, I don't think that there's geographical limitations that make sense. Like we can't do
I
it.
agree.
It's a scale. We're limiting our own scale. Like just it doesn't make any sense. So
Exactly.
anyway, this is terrific. I'm hoping for more conversation when we reconnect on next Thursday. But before we depart, if I can ask you kind of two-way question, right? Uh, for our event on the 6th, when we reconnect, what is your expectations from the audience as far as what are you looking to get from based on that connection. And also, you're sharing your story, you're sharing Moffitt's story, but you also, in a strange sense, you're reintroducing yourself back to Boston, which is which is which is where you live. So, what do you want the Boston audience to know about your work at Moffitt? So, if you could.
Yeah, on the 6th, I'd love to talk about our portfolio. I want to give you some examples of the work we've been doing and some of the incredible companies we've been spinning out. I'm looking for uh, partners and collaborators and like-minded thinkers of all sorts, investors, partnerships, if you want to do something together, customer, like however we can sort of take some of the incredible work we're doing and expand or multiply the impact of it. I think that's what I'm really open to. And then also, Cancer X is a really amazing initiative. If that's something that people would like to join, I'd love to talk about that as well. At the end of the day, this is all about how do we cure cancer, and then how do we prevent deaths. And we're joined in that mission. So whoever's excited about that mission, I'd love to know them better and find ways to collaborate.
Very excited. Can't wait for next week.
Awesome. All right. Thank you.